there's a real sense of excitement in the Pro League Deux at the moment, and in the top 14 as well. That anxiety and dread of those bottom teams scrapping it out, and the top. I think you need that in this game. There's got to be consequences and rewards and risks to add to it, because we put everything out there. There's got to be something to be playing for, a bit more meaningful. We're talking about a second division that just really does blow out the water what you signed up to in the Championship, really. On television on a Thursday night and a Friday night, selling out crowds, big teams, big budgets, good players, competitive league. Just really exciting and new. I've just enjoyed getting away from English rugby. Not that it wasn't great, but to have something different, and the demands training are less. The demands in terms of the schedule, though it's a long season, there are weeks off and there is rotation. And I'm just at the stage of my career where I can enjoy it and really embrace the opportunity and the change.
There's quite clearly a very full wind in the sails of French rugby, and there has been for some time. The new television deal, I think, has broken all records. It's just all moving in the right direction. And I think if you are to compare that with the Premiership, very much signs of comeback across the Premiership, and I know there's sort of one or two challenges we'll come on to, and actually some really interesting things going on in the Championship as well. But I don't mean for it to be an unfair question, but give me a mark out of 10 for the top 14. In terms of what it's trying to be, and in terms of the momentum it's got,
I'd probably give it a 7
for the top 14.
Yeah, for the top 14.
Okay. Where could it improve?
I think it could improve in terms of there could be more sponsorship. I think we could probably get ticketing prices better. I think there are various things we could get, which is more off the pitch.
Okay.
I think on the pitch, it's doing well for itself. Perhaps we need to look at player health. Yeah, because they do play an awful lot of games. So that's the reason I give it a 7. But I think in terms of spectacle and excitement, and it's like an absolute TV series every week. You what's the next episode? Woo! And I think that is incredible. It's probably give that an 8 or a 9.
Okay, so same question then for the Premiership, for what you watch of it.
Ooh.
I'm trying to compare and contrast top 14 with Prem.
I think there are lots of wonderful things in the Premiership. I think the problem with the Premiership today is that it's wilted. And therefore, because it's gone down in the number of clubs, and because there's investor fatigue and there are so many people not quite knowing what the model should be, there are an awful lot of questions being asked. And dare I say it, there are quite a number of games that should be absolutely thrilling. The other week, Newcastle, Exeter, or games like that, which should be really exciting. But there's no jeopardy. There's no jeopardy. And so if there's no jeopardy, there are no bums on seats. And I think that if you don't have jeopardy, then you take away an awful lot of the excitement and the reasons we play sport.
Do you think... So again, you even talked about, even in the top 14, that sponsorship is still probably undersold. We know that happens in the Premiership. The ability to get out their own way to do what's best for the collective within the league is an issue. So then what rugby does is tinker with what could be the system, which now is talked about franchise league or whatever, rather than relegation and promotion. But Johnny's just put it very succinctly about what makes French rugby so good is it's thriving for it. Yes, obviously everyone can talk about Canal Plus, but you have that jeopardy, and that's what English sport has always been made up in every sport. There's always promotion, relegation. So do you think by talking about franchises, you're just shuffling the cards rather than getting to the root of what is the problem?
I think you are shuffling the cards, but I think you've got to step back and you look around this table, the different stakeholders in rugby. You've got to talk about what is the institution, and you've got to defend the institution. And the institution is English professional rugby, the RFU, Premiership, the Tier 2. I nearly said the Pro League 2. The Tier 2, and that is the institution. And at the moment, you've got different stakeholders just defending their stake. And that is very sad.
The LNR does not rely on the FFR as much as the Premiership relies on
RFU.
RFU. Is that true?
True.
And that's mainly because they've gone off and they've done it themselves. The FFR don't own their own stadium, so they have to pay 3 to 5 million just to rent Stade France. So they're not the cash cow. So is it the RFU's responsibility to put 33 million into English rugby.
I can't answer that question. I wasn't there when the negotiation was done, etc. What I can say, though, is that you talk about the LNR, and that's very interesting because the LNR is top 14 and Pro D2.
Yeah.
It's seamless. It's one entity. And when we sit around the room every 2 months, all the presidents get together. We all sit around, and the president of Soyons Angoulême has the same number of votes as the president of Toulouse. And we all sit around the room together. We argue like hell for 2 days, but then we vote, and then we move on. And that is why it's seamless. And then we have to vote on things like promotion and relegation. And it's Toulouse's interest, it's Bordeaux's interest that we have great clubs like Soyons Angoulême and Mont-de-Marsan. It's in their interest because they go, and we were talking about it earlier with Johnny, there's great players in the Pro D2 who are all desperate to leave Brive. We've got a couple this year. We've got Carbonneau going to Racing. Bless him, we got Mathis Ferté going to Toulon. And that's what, but everyone's aspirational. And it's seamless.
And how does that compare with the Premiership and the Championship? I mean, we see what we read in the papers, but what is the actual reality of the conversations you are having with Championship clubs and the Premiership?
I've only been here since November, end of November. I have to say that the dialogue's good at the moment. I don't have to say it, but I am saying it. Yep. The dialogue's very good. However, there are certain people, the Premiership, and if I were an owner and I'd put in millions and millions into a club, I would be very protective of my investment. And therefore, I understand very clearly why some owners want to protect their investment. And a closed league, short-sightedly, is the best way to do it because you basically, you say, come and invest in us because no one will be relegated. But if there's no jeopardy, then there's no excitement. I'm sorry, but last night, Racing played Stade Français, and both of them are down in bargain basement. And it was a hell of a dogfight. The stadium was absolutely pumping. The Canal Plus figures were amazing, and neither of them want to be there, but it makes for great spectacle.
So when Bruce Craig comes out and tells the Times, professional club rugby in England is at a crossroads, the traditional system of promotion and relegation has long been seen as a pillar of competitive integrity, yet in reality it has become a financial burden and detriment to growth at every level, your response to him is?
Tier 2 needs to be involved in every single conversation about the future of professional rugby.
And is that the reality?
It's not enough the reality at the moment. And I think that at the moment, what we need to do, and what we're starting to do, it happened a few weeks back, we had a very productive meeting with Bill Sweeney, who led the meeting, Mike McTighe, chair of the Men's Professional Rugby Board, and representatives from the Premiership and Tier 2. And we all sat around, we started a talk, and it's some very, very good stuff. However, and they've said it in the newspaper, they're very camped on the position of no relegation. And fundamentally, I believe that to be the lifeblood of sport, promotion, aspiration, and relegation. Funny enough, I was at the EFL awards dinner last night. I don't know anything about football.
Right.
But there was it's the first, second, third division. I'm not quite sure. It's the three divisions.
Is it Championship 1,
Championship
2, 3,
1 and 2. So three divisions were at this dinner. And again, all the discussion was around promotion and relegation and the excitement of promotion and the jeopardy of relegation. I don't know anything about football, but I do understand promotion and relegation. Brive have been down 3 times in the last 10 years and they've gone back up twice, and we're hoping to go up again this year.
Take notes, Courtney. Take notes, please.
And then the last week, the chair, the president of Perpignan, François Rivière, he made a great big statement in the press and saying, if Perpignan go down, it won't change anything in our project. We're going forward. So all this stuff about Armageddon and goodness knows what else, for me, we're not talking about the right stuff. What we should be talking about is how do we make the second division, the Tier 2, stronger so that we have more clubs who are strong. So I think that the RFU, the Premiership and Tier 2 must all be sitting together and say, how do we make the whole of professional rugby? Because that's the institution. The institution's not the Premiership. It's not just the England team.
So what is the answer to that then? I had a fantastic day on Saturday at the Richmond Athletic Ground watching Richmond get promoted, and congratulations to Rob Powell and his team. It was a really a soul-warming day in the sunshine, watching a team that's absolutely battled its way through National League 1 and has done the job. But they now know that stepping up into the Championship next year is a totally different kettle of fish. They've got Ealing Trailfinders, a professional entity at the top. Richmond are sort of, working out what they're going to be and who they're going to be to whom, etc. When you talk about Brive going up and down, the financial difference between top 14 and Pro D2 is a fraction of the difference between Premiership, then an enormous drop to the Championship, and then probably an even bigger drop to National League One.
Totally agree with you.
So what's the solution?
Well, the solution
money
is that everybody needs to work very hard in bringing up Tier 2 so that the jump down or the jump up is not like a chasm or an unassailable mountain. And that's going to take 2, 3, 4 years. At the moment, one thing I think we could deal with very well would be to have an expansion of the Premiership and no relegation for like 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
So you're building. You must have minimum operating standards, because currently in the Tier 2, and I've been to a lot of the clubs, there are grounds that are just not fit for purpose. You can't have professional rugby in those grounds, in those stadia. So it's not just sporting, it's minimum operating standards. It's that, the loos are right, that the changing rooms are right, and that's not the case at the moment. So there's an awful lot of work in Tier 2 to pull it up. And then there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done with the RFU and the Premierships that make that better. And in the meantime, you don't need to have jeopardy. You can have the Premiership say, OK, I don't quite understand how Newcastle were allowed to stay up, but that's not for me to judge.
Because?
Well, they came last, and they got rid of some of their best players because they knew they weren't going down.